Yes, so we were about to start discussion on the verse number 7 from the Madhusudana Saraswati. And Mame Vangsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Mana Sastanindriyani Prakriti Sthane Karasati. So this is an explanation as we're discussing. We had a long background to this in Madhusudana commentary. The discussion was about this whole story, that the way the sun is reflected in water, and if you remove the water, the sun returns to itself because it was where it was. We were basically looking at an image of the sun, and we are counting these reflected suns as one, two, three, and there was no kampana, nothing, because there was some sort of vibration or movement of water. We thought as if the sun was moving on the water surface, but the sun wasn't moving on the water surface. And then there was another example of ghatakasa, patakasa, as if that space which we divide and we sort of set a few limiting contours and shapes, we attribute these qualities to that space, but it remains unlimited space. And when you break that pot, it becomes pure space again. The name of pot space is removed, the space regains. Same way, na punaravartante. In that context, Bhagavan explained what it means for Jiva not to come back to earth in that context. Now he's sort of explaining why that is so. And then why he wakes up in the morning from Susupti, where also he sort of gets that Atmananda, Sata Somya Sada Sampannu Bhavati, that Shruti Vakya, the student had quoted as a Purva Pakhya in order to drive home um, the need for a larger discussion on why, after deep sleep, we all wake up and we behave as if we are pulled back into samsara, why we do not get liberation, why we come back after deep sleep where there is no indriya, no nothing, actually everything is silent. Whereas Bhagavan says, when we get that Atma Bhava, we don't come back after self realization. What is the difference? So he has to sort of drive home the point that yes, there is a big difference between deep sleep and moksha or liberation. In that, he explains why we wake up after deep sleep, because we are pulled back by our karmas. So, after some time, we deserve a bit of sleep and we get good sleep. And even good sleep is because of papa punya. If you have papa, you won't even get good sleep. Good sleep is also a blessing because it gives you a lot of happiness. So, a person who quickly falls asleep, he's sort of associated with being very sattvic person, because if a person is not very sattvic, it's quite possible that he may actually struggle to get quick sleep. If he's very rajasic, very agitated, then he may have to take intoxicant or sleeping pills or something like that. Now, let's first look at the sabdartha and then we'll have discussion on it. Mama eva paramatmana paramatmano angsho nirangsasyapi mayaya kalpitaha mamevangsha jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. This jiva, who appears like jiva, is actually verily a part of me. That means he's not different from me. He's one bhaga of me. But don't try to have any doubts that we are kind of split into parts of Bhagavan, Lord Krishna. No, not in that sense. The way the pot space is separate from space pure, in that sense, the Jivatma is one angsha of Paramatma. Not that Bhagavan is kind of split into million parts and then we all are one small tiny pieces of God. Some people imagine like that, but that is not the purpose of the statement. Mame vangsho jiva loke. In the jiva loka, that is in martya loka, jiva bhutaha. We are in the wrapper, in the package called a jiva. Sanatana, however, this truth that we carry, the satta angsa that we carry, which is no different from the Sachidananda Swarupa Bhagavan, and that consciousness, that Chaitanya that all of us carry, is no different from the that Suddha Chaitanya, which is Param Brahman. And if that is so, then when we actually go to the self in deep sleep, why do we come back? Bhagavan explains, Manaha sastan indriyani. This manas is the sixth sense of that, all those indriyas. And this prakriti, they are in that state, and that maya sort of pulls that person back because of the karmic load. It karsati, it akarsati, he explains. Now let's look at Madhusudana's commentary. We have already done Sankar commentary a couple of days back. We had a long discussion yesterday. So we'll make some textual progress today. Mama eva paramatmano angsho nirangsasya api. Because Param Brahman is nirangsha. Then how can you say that a person who doesn't have any parts, he's saying he's a part of me? In what sense? We just explained it. Like the sun is reflected in water, you can say this water, the sun in the river or the pot is part of that sun. That is a manner of speaking. That is not literally what is conveyed by that sentence. Same way, when you say pot space, you are not saying that this space is part of that Mahakasha. Not in that sense. It's just it's just a limitation mentally you are fixing on that infinite space, which is real. So nirangsasyapi mayaya kalpitaha is imagined through this maya, that prakriti. Surya sya eva jale navasa eva cha ghate. The way the sun's image is kind of captured in water, the way this navasaha of the sky, eva, that ghatakasa, that nava in ghatakasa, eva, mrisha bhedavan angsha. It is mrisha bhedavan. Mrisha means what? Mrisha means mithya. Mithya Vedavan. That means it's not a real difference. Jiva Ishvara Aikya is what is all the time conveyed by Advaita Vedanta. So there is no real difference, but there is a phenomenal difference. So Mrisha Vedavan Angsa. So the Veda is not real, but it's apparent. Angsa Iva Angsho. As if it's a part. It's not a part actually. It's just an appearance. Like the reflected sun is not a part of the original sun. The ghatakasa, the space within the pot is not part of Mahakasa. It's just space. We are fixing a name and a form. Same way, Jiva Loke Sansare. Sacha Prana Dharano Upadhina. What is Jiva Prana Dharani? Jivati. Jiva, that dhatu, it means actually Jiva Prana Dharani in Bhadi. So he says, so he's saying Sansare Prana Dharana Upadhina. That because he has a life, is a living thing, a living organism. Upadina, with that title, with that limitation, with that name and form, Jiva Bhutaha, that Atma, which is Niravaiva, Niskala, Nirguna, right? That takes a limited name and form because of the game of Maya. Why that works? Because we are Ajnani. It doesn't work on the Jnani. The same Maya is there. It doesn't trouble the Jnani. It only troubles the Ajnanis. It works for them. Upadhina Jiva Bhutaha. And then once you have the Jiva Bhuta title, once you are appointed to a particular, you go and join a job in, let's imagine, in the state secretariat, but you don't have a posting. Would you be able to do anything? No. You are reporting to whom? General administration. Is there any chair or table or anything for you? Nothing. You actually just join, go home, salary goes to you. You are not doing anything. But the moment there's a posting order, you are appointed as special secretary so and so. Then there is a bench, there is a job description, there is a reporting schedule, whom and what are the responsibilities, and then you have to attend a lot of meetings, and immediately you become active. That I am the agent, I have to do this, these are my responsibilities, otherwise I'm going to be taken to task, these are the people who are going to assist me, this is my supervision schedule, everything comes into picture. Similarly, once we become Jiva Bhuta, that Sachidananda Swarupa, that Niravayava Atma becomes Jiva, then what happens? Karta, Bhokta, Sansari, iti Mrisha eva prasiddhim upagataha. Then he has all these job descriptions. He's Karta. He has a child, he has a wife, he has a dog, he has a house, he has a big garden. All these things come in. And a bhokta, he's going to enjoy his papa punya, all the work he will do as a karta. The moment you have kartutva, I'm doing this, remember we have to be immediately realize that we are also going to be bhokta, not bhokta of all good things. All papa punyas, good things, bad things. Whatever are committed through us, results will come to us. And then we become sansari. The sansaranam starts, birth and death, and this whole pravaha, santana, continues. Mrisha eva, and that is mithya eva. Prasiddhim upagataha. He gets that identity. For a few years, so far you are in that post, people know you as Special Secretary of Education, or maybe any particular department that is so assigned to you. So you are known as Secretary Saab, Education Secretary Saab. That's how people know you, but actually you are just yourself. And because if you are Education Secretary, what you are after your retirement, or what you were before you assumed that office, you still existed, isn't it? So these are Mrisha eva prasiddhim upagataha sanatano nityaha. The reality is that this Atma is Sanatana, is Nitya. Upadhi parichedepi, even though it is kind of appearing as if it's limited by certain upadhi, certain name and form, and a title as a jiva, as an officer, as a wife, as a husband, as a son, as a brother. Vastutaha, fundamentally, really, Paramatma Swarupatvat. Therefore, Sanatana, because actually in the heart of our hearts, we are Suddha Satta Swarupa, no different from Brahman. And therefore, Sanatanaha. And therefore, this sentence gives us a lot of hope. Despite the fact that a lot of people are dying and we will also die in the sense we will not die, the body will fall. But we know we are Sanatana, the Shastra says it. Ato Jnanat Ajnana Nibritya. How can we have Ajnana Nibriti? By knowledge, self-knowledge. So one has to do Paroksha Jnana. We have, Sabda and all the sentences and words and Upanishads, and you study and then you repeat them. You do Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Tena Ajnana Nibritya, with the help of Ajnana Nibriti, Swaswarupam Brahma Prapya, then he realizes, no, I'm not husband, I'm not wife, I'm not this, I'm not that. Tataha na nivartante iti yuktam. So it's very logical that he doesn't come back because the pot is broken and the sky, the akasa, ceases to be ghatakasa. Once you just given the relief order, you just hand over your charge and you are happily driving home, and then you are telling your children, I'm a free man. I'm no more going to report in the office sharp at 10 o'clock. No, I'm not going to do that. Or 9:30, whatever that is. Then the whole question is, if this is actually liberation, that in deep sleep also we are dropping all names and forms. Because is there any officer when we are in deep sleep, any intelligent guy, any student of Vedanta, any person when we are in deep sleep? No, none of the names and titles are there. But why do we come back then? Therefore, he explains, Evam Bhutapi, even though we are that, Suddha Satta Swarupa, even then, Susuptad Katham Avartate. If that is the case, why do we come back? Ityaha, therefore he explains, Manaha Sastam Yesam Tani. This mana is the sixth indriya of those group of sense, this, what do you call it, these, the tools of sense perception, the six senses, five senses, and mind is the sixth sense. Yesam Tani Sotra, Tvak, Chakshu, Rasana, Grana, Kyani. These are the names. The ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to touch, the ability to smell, the ability to taste, all that. Khyani panchendriyani indriyasya atmanaha vishaya upalabdhi karanataya. So these are the causes. The Atma can connect with the external world for bhoga, not on its own, but with the help of this tool. That verse is going to come again. Karanataya lingani. These are the chinhas. These India's kind of lingani. Yagat sopna bhoga janaka karma kshaye. Now, when you are having Jagrata Avastha, you did a lot of karmas, then you get tired, and then you go into a sleepy state, and then you feel drowsy, you have a dream state. Okay? And then what happens is you enter into a deep sleep state. There's something called rapid eye movement, and some people say that that is the state where you are actually dreaming. You are not in a very deep sleep, but some people say that in rapid eye movement, actually you're in a very deep sleep, whatever that is. Tok Shakyu Rasana Grana Khyani Panchendriyani Indriyasya Atmanaha Vishya Upalabdhi Karanataya Lingani Jagra Swapna Bhoga Janaka Karma Khyay. So that Bhoga Janaka Karma, when you have a lot of Bhoga Janaka Karma, that you have to do this. So you have taken a few responsibilities. You have to discharge that. You can't sleep. Like, for example, those of you are in the government sector, you may be a professor, you may be an academic, or you may be a consultant. But if you are associated with the government during a flood or a cyclone, they will assign you duty. They will not care that you are an intellectual or anything. They might just hand over the state control room to you. And you may not know what to do, but then you are on duty that particular night. You have to manage the control room. Similarly, that bhoga janaka, that karma kshay, but that bhoga, dukkha, sukha, stress, whatever you're supposed to experience for that particular day, the quota is over. Then you will go to sleep. There's a beautiful description in the Upanishads about it. Like, for example, he's saying that there is this guy who has a few birds, birds with him, and he releases them. So they go and fly, but in the evening they come back to this person. Right? Similarly, the senses that we have, they go and connect with the whole universe. But then, when they are tired, they come back and they want to take rest. So the bhoga janaka karma, when so far it is there, we have to work. We have to respond to external stimuli and challenges. When that is over, then we sort of take sleep. We have that punya thing. The load of work for that day is over. We breathe a sigh of relief, and we go to sleep. Karma kshaye prakritistani. And then these indriyas go to that vijavastha, go to that prakritistani. Prakruto ajnani sukshma rupena stitani. So they get into that subtle form. They are not active anymore. Because if we say the indriyas and everything are completely withdrawn, then we cannot be reborn again. We cannot wake up in the morning. So they are like the computer is put in the sleep mode. The senses are put into the sleep mode when we are in deep sleep. Punar Jagrad Bhoga Janaka Karmoday. So this is the imagination. There is again Karma Udaya. So the next phase, one phase of karma, this guy has to do these karmas, right? So there is a schedule by God. Let's imagine. I mean, all of it is within us. Our karma, the software and the program is running, and we have to wake up and we have to sleep, depending on our papa punya karmas and how we engage with it and how we manage our attention. Then again, those energies wake up. And when they wake up, what happens? You will be active again. I'll tell you a very personal story here. There was one bright IT computer guy who landed up here, and he told me I want to take sannyas. I think that was about a year back, maybe less than that. He came from Bangalore. He had a startup, and he wanted to. He was supposed to get some business from, I think, Uber or something, and he landed up here in Rishikesh. He looked a little depressed, and he said, "I want to study, and I'm tired of this tech world and this and that." And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, do one thing. You go and sit in some Vedanta classes." I sent him to one or two teachers. I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "No, I didn't like it. I'm not super excited about it." I said, "Okay." I sent him to a particular place called Vasisht Guha, and he went there. Very bright man. So I said, "Why don't you go and meditate for 2 days, and then we can catch up and we can talk." So he went there and sat there for deeply for 2 days. Then he came back and I had a talk to me. I said, "How do you feel?" He says, "Yeah, this is all fine, but if Swami Vivekananda was here today, would we be sitting in a cave, or he would be working on a tech platform to create a software solution where people can actually apply Vedantic insights into their lives?" So he's already thinking about a startup. And I said, "Look here, you need to immediately go back. You have a bright idea, work on it, or you join a job, get ready because you have some bright ideas." And if you see already, there is some startup I read in the newspaper. I don't know, it's not that guy, but some other guy, one husband, wife, they have got together and they are working on, it's called the Mind House or something. It's a tech startup on yoga. All right. Now, this guy who came here to become a monk, he went and meditated. He is completely withdrawn from the whole world, but that bhoga janaka karma udaya happens. Those sanskaras wake up. When they wake up, what happens? Like Steve Jobs came and went to these Kainchi ashram, and he stayed and he became a monk for 6 months and blah blah blah. And then what happens? The Bhoga Janaka karma udaya happens. When these karmic energies wake up, this person is pulled back into the world of karma. And if he doesn't respond to it spiritually, one has to recognize that there is a high load of rajasic energy. He need to respond to it. And he cannot, then he'll become very tamasic if he suppresses it. And therefore, is that bhoga janaka karmodaya bhogartham karshati. That bhogartham, the objects of your bhoga, that you have to do a program, you have to do something XYG, it will pull you. Kurmanga niva, like for example, there is this tortoise who withdraws all its limbs if there is a hostile atmosphere. How long can it hold? And after some time, it again expands its legs and hands, and then it goes. It is actually a, it's actually a opposite example. That particular tortoise withdraws its limbs when it has to withdraw its attention. It has to protect itself. After some time, it expands. But this is a prati udaharana. It's a different, given as an example. Prakritehe ajnanat akarshati. So because of, again, he thinks that no, I have something left to do, and therefore let me do it. So he goes and he does it. Not a problem. Okay, everything is fine, provided we remain honest and sensitive and sincere. Visha grahana yogyateya avirbhavayati ityarthaha. Now, let me tell you, it's like this. Uh, how do I explain? So there are. Let's imagine that. Let's imagine there are 2-3 pieces of business opportunities for you, 3-4 things to do before you, but you never considered it, right? And you are busy with something else. And then one fine morning you wake up, and then you think that this piece of land I have, I need to convert this into a rose garden. One fine morning. That place was there, you never bothered about it. That was a piece of land in your backyard. You never thought about it. But suddenly you went, on some pretext, you went to the backyard, you looked at it. Maybe you went out searching for something, you looked at the whole backyard, you said, oh my God, it's half an acre, half an acre of land. Why am I wasting it? Let me have a rose garden, or let me have a tulsi garden, let me have a herbal garden. And suddenly that idea strikes you, and then you start implementing that plan. Now, how Bhagavad Gita explains that is beautiful. He's saying that, you know what? Vishaya grahana yogyataya avirbhavayati. It presents that reality, this karma, the bhogajanaka karma. That object was always there. The piece of land was there. Bhogajanaka karma wasn't there. When that bhogajanaka karmodaya happens, that karmic energy sort of evolves and suddenly rises in us. The same piece of land strikes a chord in you. You want to have a garden there. So it immediately, you see some bhoga artha, there is something to experience there. You want to relish the beauty of a rose garden. You want to relish the the medicinal value of different herbal plants. Then you want to get down to work. You want to do that. So that is the bhoga janaka karmodayat vishaya grahana yogyataya. It prepares that land. Earlier you didn't see there is any yogyata, that you will do something, there is any value in that piece of land. That is just a backyard, dirty, and lots of shrubs here and there, but you clean it up immediately because you see it has potential to be a herbal garden or a rose garden. That is how this whole prakriti, this maya, this whole game of our this karmic load and how it unfolds and how we sort of connect with the external world is explained here. Ataha jnana anabrito api. If we have jnana, then we'll not come back. Ajnanat abritihi na upapanna iti. So if you have jnana, you have that realization, no, I have nothing more to do. That is a different ball game. The other thing is that the same thing, that there is some sort of identification, some sort of a call you receive, then you can also have aprit. That means a person wakes up in the morning and he wants to do his daily chores. He wants to restart his life again. Now, Then he will explain these small things one by one. Kasmin kale karsati iti uchyate. I'm not again going to Sankara Bhashya because I checked for verse number 8, 9, and 10. Madhusudan is good enough because what Shankaracharya says and what is said here, not much of a difference. Very little, one word here and there. So that will just be a repetition. Kasmin kale karsati, kab khichta hai, when a person is pulled, and he's explaining it here. शरीरं यत् अवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीते गृहीत्वेतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वासयात्. How it happens and when it happens, that is the question. He's saying the Ishvara here is actually Jiva, because he's talking about the boss of this Indriya, Karya, Karana, Sanghata. Karya is the Sarira and the 5, 6 senses we have. And this is a combination of these two, a very meaningful combination. So we are active. And that Sariram Yad Avapnoti. So when actually Sankaracharya Beautiful says that you have to flip it. First read the second sentence, then read the first sentence. Gruhitva etani. Etani means Indriyani. Having accepted, having received, after doing akarshana. Okay? He mentioned that akarshana in the previous verse. Now he's saying the next thing. Gruhitva etani indriyani sanyati. And how does he go? How does it happen? How does he pull these indriyas? Vayur gandha nivasayat. Now this beautiful flower there is a fragrant flower there. And that smell comes to you. On a April or May in the afternoon, if you have a jasmine garden, the flowers, they emit that beautiful smell in the afternoon or evening or in the morning. You have that Raat Ki Rani. Early morning, she emits that beautiful, it sort of blooms at night and falls at morning in the morning. And then that beautiful smell that you have. So how does that smell come to you? There's some bit of a discussion. So the Nyayikas, the Gandha is actually Prithvi Guna, right? Prithvi Gandhavati, Prithvi Sa Gandhavati, Prithvi. That Prithvi has been having Gandhavatvam, that is, that smellness is the quality of earth. Now, it comes through air, but air, how the smell can come? Because smell is a quality of earth. So the Nyayikas explain that, those of us have studied physics, there's something called diffusion. There is diffusion in the air. What does it happen? Those fragrant particles are actually moving in air from one place to the other. And that is what exactly these people say, that these flowers, there are those particles who are carrying that smell in great amount. And the air sort of carries those fine particles having fragrance. It pulls them. So this whole prana, when a person is assuming a body or is dying, yachapi utkramati ishwaraha, sariram yad avapnoti, when it receives a body, first it abandons the old body, then it receives another new body, right? So it's now, we are talking about now death. The waking up of the body after death will be through another body. So when it receives a body after death, or when it abandons the body at death, how does it happen? How it takes the indriyas with it? It pulls away all the senses with it. How? The way Vayur Gandhan iva asayat, from the asaya of the gandha, the fragrant particles. What are the asaya? The flower. The way the fine fragrant particles are pulled away and moved to other places, and that's what we call diffusion. And the smell spreads, the fragrance spreads same way. The fragrance is taken away. Similarly, the senses are pulled away by the prana when a person leaves the body. And then when it assumes a body again, the prana re-enters the body with these senses with it. So yad utkramati, whenever it sort of leaves this body and utkraman, it goes up. Bahirgachati Ishwaro, it goes outside. Outside of what? This karya karana sanghata, this body. Dehi Indriya Sanghatasya Swami, the boss of this Deha Indriya Sanghata, who is he? Jivaha. Tada yato dehat utkramati tataha manah sastani indriyani karsati iti ditya padasya prathamam anvaya utkramano uttarabhavitvad gamanasya. Because the utkramana generally happens after it has moved. After it has, like for example, you want to fly. You have to leave your house first. Without leaving your house, you cannot fly. You have to go to the airport to board the flight, then you can fly. Therefore, ideally saying same thing, which Shankaracharya says Madhusudana is taking from there, the first things would have been first mentioned, and then you should read the second line. Na kevalam karshati eva kintu yad yad yada, it doesn't only pull it, yadacha purvasmas sarirantaram avapnoti. First it pulls those senses from the old body that this jiva is abandoning. Then it enters, it picks up another body, avapnoti, prapnoti. Tad etani manasastani indriyani. Then all these indriyas, gruhitva sanyas, sanyati api. It enters that body with the family members, the senses. Because without the sense, it has mentioned, bhoga is not possible. The sarira is bhogayatanam. And then the senses are the gates of this bhogayatana, with which it connects with the external world for sensual pleasures, sense experience. Therefore, it carries the senses with it. This is the imagination. It's a theological explanation as to what happens. गृहीत्वा संयाति अपि सम्यक् पुनरागमन राहित्येन गच्छति अपि, and then सम्यक् पुनरागमन राहित्येन गच्छति अपि, and then when actually is doing utkramana without a return, that means it has already atmajnana. Then there is what? Then it's samyak punaragamana rahityana. It doesn't come back again because it is fully aware. And then sariram sati eva indriya grahani drishtantah asayat kusumadehe, that astraya kusumadehe, flowers or anything, or could be you have a essence bottle or whatever. Sthanat gandhan gandhatmakan shikshman san. What is gandhan? Gandhan means gandhatmaka sikshma anurupa bastun. So that was this angsan grihitva yatha vayur yati tadvat. The way the air blows by carrying with it the fine fragrant particles of fragrance, which are bhutanus in a way. They are basically earth particles. They are, they are sort of going, and those things it carries. Of course, bhutanu in certain languages means virus. I don't know. It'll Parthivanu will be more accurate, not bhutanu. Gruhitva yatha vayuriti tadavat. Then Tani eva indriyani darsayana yad artham grihitva gachati tad aha. Now it carries these indriyas, it goes to a new body. Or wakes up in the morning and the indriyas come back. But why? What is the need of these indriyas? That is explaining in the verse number 9. Sotram chakshuhu sparsanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha adhisthaya manaschayam Vishayan upasevate. That is the goal. Vishayan upasevate. It experiences the Vishaya vastus, this whole sansara, or raga, dvesa, whatever happens. Because there is a plot of land, you want to buy it. There's a house, you want to purchase it. There's a car, you want to. These are the Vishayas, the objects of sense perception. Sukha, dukha, whatever is the experience that follows after you connect with the Vishayas. Without Vishaya Grahana, you cannot plan anything you want to do. First thing is that you have to have sense contact and you want to connect with something. So, therefore, he's saying, Tani eva indriyani darsayan yad artham grihitva gachati tadaha. क्यों साथ में लेके जाता है इंद्रियों को जो जीव, उसे समझाते हैं. सोत्रम चक्षु स्पर्शनम च रसनम च. Sotram is seeing, chakyu to see, sotram to hear, sparshan is that twag, to touch and feel, rasanam taste, and Granam through smell through the nose, cha adhishtaya asritya. Adhishtaya here is asritya, depending on them. It requires a medium to connect with the external world. Mana cha ayam, also the mind, because you need a bit of connectivity between the antagaran and the outside. So the internal indriya is the manaha. Sotram chakshuhu sparsanam cha rasanam ghranam eva cha. These are the indriya dimensions. Chakarat karmendriyani paranam cha manasaha. He's saying you by cha word you should also say that it carries with. I mean, you see a lot of, you hear about a very beautiful classic film is playing somewhere. Okay, some great old movie. One should see that movie. Let's imagine something like Gone with the Wind, a very old movie, or maybe some great old movie like Mother India. You want to see that movie. You know it's playing in a theater 5 kilometers away from you, so maybe 20 kilometers away from your house. You want to see that on the big screen. But you are not well or you cannot move. What do? You cannot see that sitting in your house. You have to move, right? You need some physical movement. Now, if you do not have the karma indriyas, then how do you manage? Similarly, so you also need to have the karmendriyas as well as the prana. If prana is not there, what is the point? So the jiva requires the indriyas, manas plus karmendriyas plus prana, all of it. Manasya. Sastamadhishtaya eva asritya eva. It requires all of these. These are the tools. Vishayan Savdadin Ayam Jiva Upasevate Bhunkte. It experiences Sabda, Sparsha, Gandha, Rasana, all this. It experiences all these objects of sense perception with the tools of perception. Evam Dehagatam Darsana Yogyam Api Dehat. And then he's saying that that doubt we had discussed earlier, isn't it? That why, when the jiva has all these senses, it cannot see a lot of things, like it doesn't see the self. Why? Because it has the benefit of all the senses. Why it cannot see? We had brain. Why it cannot see a lot of things? It has the senses with it. He's explaining. Evam dehagatam darsana yogyam api dehat utkramantam. So let's read this verse. Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanmitam vimudhananupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshusaha. Utkramantam is the state of rising above the body after abandoning it. When? At death. When the jivatma rises. Sthitam va api, or when he's alive, it's not dying. It's alive, it's in the body. That's all of us. We are in some body right now, in our own bodies that we have assumed. Va api, bhunjanam va gunanvitam. And all these things that, all the objects of our experience. Now, we should be able to see our soul or Atma. What is that Atma? We don't see it. That is what is being explained here. Gunjanam va gunanvitam. Bimudha na anupashyanti. Bimudhaha, mohagrastaha, the ones who are deluded, the ones who are overcome by ajnana, who are intoxicated with life. They are not intoxicated with alcohol. Now, the way a person who is heavily intoxicated doesn't recognize his own father or mother, similarly, this jivatma, heavily intoxicated with samsara, doesn't recognize herself or himself. Vimudha nanu pashyanti. But there are people who see. And who are they? Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. Now, why is saying that mudhaha? Is Atma easily available for us to see? No, it's not easy. Have you seen your Atma? Have I seen my Atma? Where is it? Can I take a picture of it? No, it's not so easy. Why the Bhagavad Gita is saying Vimudha nanu pashyanti? Because there are enough reasons for us to recognize that there is some self. And we had a discussion of it in the first verse as an introduction to the 13th chapter, that whatever is mine is not me, but I have a body, it's being active. And when this body was very small, that self was there. It was a middle size, that self was there. It became big, it's kind of declining, that self is there. Therefore, the body cannot be the self. But who is doing all this? We had a long discussion. We say, my mind is not very well today. I'm feeling a little depressed. So there is some I. And that I, which is feeling depressed, whose mind is depressed, is not the mind. So similarly, we say, my body is not in a very good state. I am having a bit of pain all over my body. So I am not my body. You are not your body. We have all these statements. We pass these statements, which means we are not our mind, we are not our desires, we are not our thoughts. Because sometimes we say, I'm overcome by a lot of depressing thoughts, or I have a lot of plans. I have a lot of racing thoughts when I'm meditating. Some people complain that I sit for meditation, but my thoughts tend to overpower me. That means you are very intelligent, you are distinguishing yourself from your thoughts who are disturbing you. Young students, this is a very common question. The students, if you go talk to them about yoga or anything, you said, "Sir, we understand these yoga classes, we really enjoy it, and thank you, Swamiji. But the problem is, when we are going back to studies, our minds do not cooperate with us. So what we do, that means we are not our mind." It's very clear. So there must be someone, and we actually recognize that there is somebody, but we are always tempted to reduce that thing which is in all of this and is different from all of this to it's a combination of the biology and the brain and this and that, and there are so many scientific theories. Some people say there is something called experimental philosophy. Now they're talking about it. He said, whatever we talk about philosophy is all idiotic, because it's quite possible to have biochemical changes in the brain where a reality can be constructed for you. They are working on artificial reality, that you can wear spectacles and you will imagine as if you're in space, and you'll have same set of emotions. It's quite possible that science is working on it. That is quite possible that you may be 70 years of age, but you might be able to recover all your thoughts and emotions and everything that you experienced when you were maybe about 8 years of age. Perhaps it's possible. They're working on so many things these days. You may be able to go back and revisit your youth, your childhood. It's quite possible. However, the problem is that these things cannot represent the one who revisits those past events. There must be something which is different from the one who passes through these experiences. And that is super obvious to us. Vedanta says that is super obvious. Why don't you recognize it? Why are you reducing it? You say that no, somebody becomes a bright student because of certain situations. So the behavioralist will come up, or the Gestalt theorist will come up. He'll say no, set of conditions actually account for how the child grows. They have socialization theories. So whether he's going to be a saintly person or a criminal, it's a social situations are responsible. No one is denying it. But can you deny the fact that there is something or somebody called the agent in that child which turns out to be a saint or a sinner? And that thing is different from these whole processes, the biological processes he goes through, the psychological, the spiritual, all the processes he goes through. That child, remove that name, it's a unit of consciousness. And that consciousness is different from all these. And but we do not want to recognize it. And he says by doing that, we are actually ruling out a grand possibility, because that is why Bhagavad Gita says that these are kripanas, very miserly people. It's like you have millions and millions of dollars in your account, but you don't want to check your account. You don't want to go to the bank. The Bhagavad Gita says that these are mudhas, we are mudhas. Why? Because we don't have the courage to open up our consciousness to look at the possibility that yes, there is a self. And that self is much different from this mind, this body, these thoughts, these responsibilities, and all the titles and everything we have. These vimudha nanupashyanti. But there are certain people who see it. How do they see it? Not through the eyes. Through the naked eyes, they don't see it. They see it jnana chakshusha, jnana chakshusha. So then he's explaining Utkramantam Dehantaram Gachantam Purvasmat, from the old body, Purva Sarirasma. Sarirat Sthitam Va Api Tasmin Dehe, Tasmin Eva Dehe. So we have a body, we are there. Bhunjanam Va Savdadim Vishayan. So all these Savdadim, what are these? These objects of sense perception, Vishayas. Guna Anvitam. And what these Visayas are, they are Guna Anvita, because no Vishaya is free from any indication of Sukha and Dukkha. There's a beautiful thing, this Thomas Hobbes that I was talking about the other day. He says that whatever it was, I mean Hobbes, but more so Bentham. So whatever you are sort of pulled to, you call it good because it promises you some pleasure. Whatever gives you pleasure, you call it good. Whatever doesn't give you pleasure or gives you pain, you call it bad. So in Greek society, they were called the Epicureans, and later on, they were called hedonists, or now in the English context, they were called the utilitarians. That if it sort of gives you some happiness, it is useful to you, you think it's going to give some pleasure to you, that you think is good. And what's the goal of life? To seek pleasure, to maximize pleasure, have as much pleasure as you can. That is all they were trying to talk about, these utilitarians. So what he is saying is that Sukha Dukkha Mohatmakaihi Gunehi Anvitam. This is Vedanta. This is not simple utilitarian Western philosophy. So what they say is that all these experiences and all the Visayas with which we connect are not free from our tag. It has a long tail. Remember, whatever beast called Vishaya you touch, it will have a long tail. It will have certain Sukha, it will have Dukkha, and it will have Mohatmaka. You ask yourself why. We have just discussed that in chapter 14. Why? Because the whole sansara is trigunatmika. There will be sattvic aspect of it, and there is sattvic aspect in us. So we look, we do sukha anusandhana. So there'll be some sukha. There are vishayas which give us genuine sukha. You go sit on a riverside, you read a beautiful philosophical book, you read a great short story writer, gives you some deep happiness. And I get a lot of happiness reading someone like, if you read these Russian authors, they give you deep sense of psychological happiness because they're talking about truths you do not recognize, you do not see very easily. And then there are dukkhatmaka. You gamble, you want to win, you want to do a certain thing, you have to have a lot of physical labor, and you have to take a lot of responsibility, a lot of stress, high risk decision making. So there is dukkhatmaka. And mohatmaka also tamas. So you get attached to something, you have severe aversion or raga, or you are lazy or indolent, or you want to experience, you want to indulge in a lot of pleasures. So sukha, dukkha, and moha are unavoidable three elements which come along with the vishayas that we are trying to pursue. And that's what he's saying. Sukha, dukkha, mohatmakaihi gunehi anvitam. So this sattvika, rajasika, and tamasika gunehi anvitam. Evang sarvasu avastasu. And this is how it happens in all avastas. Darsana yogam api enam atmanam. The atmanam word is not mentioned here in Madhusudana, but that is what is hinted. Evam sarvavastasu, the one which is present with all the games, whether you are experiencing sukha or dukkha or moha. That Sakti Chaitanya, which is Nirvikara, doesn't interfere. It's a Mukha Sakhi. It's quiet. It's dumb. It's always meditating. Enam Darsana Yogyam. Oh, obviously not through eyes. Darsana Yogyam means what? You can do Anumana. You can read Shastra. You can know that it is there. Even through Anumana, you can know it. Enam Bimudhaha. Who is Bimudha? Mohograsta. This guy or this lady. Drishta Drishta Visaya Bhoga Vasana Krishta Cheta. The one who is terribly attracted and overpowered by a deep pull of the samsara, and he has Bhoga Vasana, Visaya Bhoga Vasana. I want to do this and I want to do that sort of a thing. Drishta and adrishta. What is drishta? I want to have a house and a car, good relationships, money, good food, good books, good tours, everything good. Drishta phala. You pay the money, you spend time, you get happiness. Adrishta phala. I also want to have good luck. I want to go to Swarga, spend time with Indriya, and take a walk in their beautiful garden, and maybe pick up friendship with all the devatas so that when I come back in next life, my networking will help me in getting more money. There's no end to greed. So chetaha, chetastaya atma anatma viveka ayogya nanupashyanti. So they have this atma. Because of that, they are sort of overcome. So even though they can see it, this this is viveka ayogya, because they have this anatma thing. So they're incapable, because the mind is sort of obsessed with anatma things. Therefore, the atma thing they cannot see. Nanupashyanti. Oho kashtam vartante iti jnana anukroshati bhagavan vimudha. Bhagavan is very frustrated. He's saying, what my children are doing. I created this samsara that they will have vairagya and meditate on the self and look for me. But मुझे कोई नहीं ढूंढ रहा. मैंने सब दिया इन्हें कि मुझे कोई ढूंढे, मुझे कोई नहीं ढूंढ रहा. That's why he's kind of frustrated in saying विमूढ़ा ना अनुपश्यन्ति, because हम अपने आप को जान ले तो भगवान भी आ जाएंगे. क्यों? जीवा एंड ईश्वर आर नॉट डिफरेंट. जब भी आदमी ध्यान की ओर बढ़ता है, अपने आप भगवान खड़े रहते हैं. क्यों? आत्मा और ब्रह्मन आर नॉट सेपरेट. The Jivatma and Paramatma are not separate. So whether you believe in God or not, whether you are a Buddhist or a Vedanti, when you sit in meditation, in deep meditation, you abandon all names and forms. You may like it, you may not like it. Bhagavan is blessing you. The Buddhists may not recognize it, may not understand it, but how does it matter? He is verily one with that infinite consciousness, that Sachidananda Swarupa. Oh, Kashtam Bhartante. Ye tu pramana janita jnana chakshusha. Those who are having jnana chakshus, those people, jnana chakshu people, vivekinaha, they are having this viveka, te eva pasyanti. So they verily recognize this atma. So this is how we have sort of come to the closure of the 10th verse, and we'll carry forward from there tomorrow. So I'll sort of bring it to an end on the YouTube. If you have any question, you can ask on the Google.